Hello, welcome to this series. Let us continue with the bases and dimensions of a vector space. In last lecture, I discussed with you the basis and dimension of a vector space, and this lecture is devoted to the refreshing the basis and dimensions and some problems followed by theorem. So, this is the scope of today's lecture. Number one, basis and dimension will be revisited just for refreshing because time is left between two lectures. Second is examples and solutions, so that we can better understand what is the basis and what is the dimension of a vector space and how are these evaluated. And in the last, we will consider a couple of theorems regarding dimension of vector space and vector subspaces. Let us have the definition of basis revisited. A set of vectors v1 to vn in a vector space V is called a basis for V if all the vectors v1 to vn are linearly independent, means there is no combination of these vectors with the help of some real numbers belonging to field which can give us the zero vector. So the only possibility is the coefficients of these vectors will always be 0. Then only we can say that the vectors are linearly independent. And also this set should generate or span the vector space itself. So V must be the linear span of this set. These are the two propositions we want to make here, because we are going to use these propositions in the theorems. Any linearly independent set is a basis for its span. The number of variables in it will define the dimension, which we will take in the next couple of slides. A vector space can have more than one basis. As I discussed, the minimum number of vectors in a basis is defined for a vector space, but it can contain more vectors, but those vectors will be extra, or we can call them redundant vectors. So a vector space can always have more than one basis, and those bases will contain more vectors which will be extra. Next is the simple example of standard basis for the Euclidean space in n dimensions. So this example will produce many other spaces by giving values to this n. So a set of all unit vectors in R power n is a standard basis for n-dimensional space. A set B consisting of all these n tuple unit vectors, these are n vectors starting from 1 0 0, and these number of zeros in this vector will be n minus 1. So all these vectors contain n components, and these are n vectors. So this constitutes the basis of this Euclidean space Rn, and this is the linear span for the Euclidean space. So you can find the standard basis for n equal to 2, 3, 4, as many as you require for your purpose. So what is the meaning of more than one basis? We can take up an example so that it will be very clear that how a vector space can have more than one basis. So if we consider two-dimensional xy plane, which can be generated with the help of unit vectors, so we can always write this basis b1 equal to 1 0 0 1, or in the column vector form 1 0 0 1. Any arbitrary vector belonging to the two-dimensional plane xy plane can be represented as a times 1 0 plus b times 0 1. So the set of these unit vectors will always be the standard basis for this two-dimensional xy plane. Now if we consider second example of a basis, then we can take these two vectors 1 1 and 1 minus 1. For any set to be the basis, it must be linearly independent. So if we see here that, can we represent this 1 1 as a vector in terms of 1 minus 1? Are these two vectors lying in the same line, or we can say that this vector is a multiple of this vector or this vector is a multiple of this vector. You cannot say. So these two vectors are linearly independent. So we can represent them by column vectors also. And if I take this a comma b as an arbitrary vector in xy plane, I can always represent them in the form of a plus b by 2 1 1 and a minus b by 2 1 minus 1. So we can verify a plus b by 2 and a minus b by 2. If I add these two, I will be getting a by 2 plus a by 2, which is a. Second is b by 2 minus times b by a by 2 plus b by 2. So this a by 2 will be cancelled because of this negative 1. So we will be left with the b. So we can always write this as a linear combination of these two vectors, and hence we can say that the set b2 is also a basis for this xy plane. But one point you might have noted over here, that the base b1 and basis b1 and this basis b2 both contain the number of elements equal to 2. So as I said, there may be more than one basis, but the number of elements in those bases will be same, and that number is always known as the dimension of its span. Whatever set they are, or is vector space they are going to span, will always be the of dimension equal to number of elements in this. Moreover, a two-dimensional plane will have two components in a vector, and same represents the dimensions also. So how this number of components can become dimension of the vector space, or can it be less than the number of these number of components? That will be more clear in the coming examples. So if the number of vectors in a spanning set, this is called the spanning set, is more than required, are called redundant. That we have already taken up in the previous lecture. So what is dimension? All the bases of a vector space will have same number of elements, which we have already proved. The number of elements in any basis is the dimension of that vector space, and it is denoted by dim v. A vector space is finite or infinite dimensional depending upon the number of elements lying in the base. So this is the example. A set of polynomials is infinite dimensional vector space, whereas a set of polynomials of degree n or less than that is a finite dimensional vector space with dimension equal to n plus 1. In last lecture I had discussed the same thing, and in this lecture also I am discussing that a polynomial of degree 2 requires three terms: ax square, bx and c, second degree term, first degree term and constant term, which is the 0 degree term, where all these a, b, c are the members of set of real numbers. So the basis for this vector space of second degree polynomials is 1x x square. All the elements of this set P2x can be represented as linear combinations of these three. So this is the best example of a vector space, and the dimension more than the degree we require for defining these vector set of polynomials. Now, what are the restricted vector spaces? As I said, can there be a basis or the dimension which is less than the number of components in the vector lying in base? So the answer is yes. So a vector space having some restrictions on the elements in its basis is called a restricted vector space. Say for example, R2 we have as a vector space, and we define the basis such that the elements in that basis must satisfy a condition that the first component is greater than or equal to 0. Then only we can say that there is a restriction, and hence the vector space is a restricted vector space. So restrictions on the basis cause reduction in dimension of it. So as I said, all the restrictions which we impose on the elements and their components are always responsible for reduction in the dimension of a vector space itself. Now let us see this example. we are considering the subspace R4, where any element lying in R4 will have 4 components. And these 4 components, X, Y, Z and W, these are having these two restrictions, that sum of X, Z and W is equal to 0 and the sum of Y plus Z plus W is equal to 0, where all these 4 components belong to set R. So these are the two restrictions, and hence this, if it is a vector subspace, then it will be called restricted vector subspace of vector space V. So here I have written that this reduces the dimension of W by 2. Why? We have 4 components in this element of W, and there are 2 components. So 4 minus 2 is 2. So the dimension of this W would have been 4 if there were no restrictions, but there are 2 restrictions, so the degree of freedom of all the 4 is reduced by 2, and hence it results into reduction of dimensions. So how it is reduced, let us see. So for appearing in competitive examinations, we need not derive the proof for this particular example. What we need to do is we just apply this formula. Dimension of W equal to number of components in a vector is vector minus number of restrictions imposed on those components. So this is the small formula which we can use for multiple choice type questions. So these are the 2 restrictions given to us, and the element is X, Y, Z, W, and these are the 2 restrictions. Geometrically speaking, these are the 2 planes passing through origin, and when these 2 planes are given as a condition, as conditions, then the points or the components X, Y, Z and W must lie on both the planes. That is the intersection of these 2 planes. So how do we find the intersection of these 2 planes? We just subtract one from the another. So what happens when we subtract 2 from 1? It gives us X minus Y equal to 0, which implies X is equal to Y. So these 2 conditions give me X equal to Y, and that is a straight line as an intersection of these 2 planes. So all those points must lie on the intersection of these 2 planes. So this, when used in any of 2 equations, that is X equal to Y, we always get only one equation, X plus Z plus W equal to 0. So with the help of these this restriction, these 2 restrictions and this equation, I can always have this equation, only one equation with the help of these X equal to Y, and therefore we can always write that X equal to A, Y equal to A, Z equal to minus X minus W, which can be taken as minus A minus B, and W equal to B. So when there are 4 components and there are 2 restrictions, it is going to give us 2 free variables, and which is proved with the help of this, that we have got X equal to Y and X plus Z plus W equal to 0. So I can find only the value of X by taking Z and W to be arbitrary value, and that is why these are called free variables. So either I take Z as a free variable, or I take X and W as free variables. So if I take this X as a free variable, I can have 2 values simultaneously. So taking X equal to A, I get Y equal to A, and taking W equal to B, I get Z equal to minus negative X negative W equal to negative A negative B. So if I write them in the form of matrices, that is, any vector in R4 X, Y, Z, W can be written as the linear combination of these 2 vectors. If I want to verify it, I can get X equal to A into 1 plus B into 0. I will be getting X equal to A, which is true. Y equal to A into 1 plus B into 0. So it is Y equal to A again. I take Z equal to A into minus 1 and B into minus 1. So it will be minus A minus B, and W equal to A into 0 and B equal to B into 1. So it will be W equal to B. And these vectors are derived from the condition that first is having only A. It is not having B. So there will be 1, 0. Again, Y is also having A. It will be having 1, 0. There is no component of B in Y. But Z or Z contains both A and B with negative 1 as a coefficient. So I can write A -1 and B -1. And W is not having the A component, so it will be 0 and it is equal to 1. So here we can see that any arbitrary vector in R4 can be represented as linear combination of these two vectors for any arbitrary values of A and B, meaning thereby the basis for this R4 contains only 2 elements, and it would have been 4, but these 2 restrictions have reduced the number of vectors in the basis, and hence we say that the dimension of W is 2 instead of 4, because we have expressed the element in R4 as linear combination of only 2 vectors. So I think this is the example which will be of great help for you to understand how the dimension of a vector get reduced when there are some restrictions. Let us take the theorems based upon some dimensions. So this is theorem 1, and if V is a vector space and W is a finite dimensional subspace of this vector space V, then dimension of V will be equal to dimension W if and only if both the implications V equal to W. It means if dimension of V is equal to dimension of W, then their 2 sets or 2 spaces V and W will always be equal. On the contrary, if V is equal to W, then their dimension will be same. So let us prove it by taking two-way method. Number 1, main part. So let W equal to V first, or V equal to W first. We need to prove that the dimension of these two will be same. So how can we do that? So if W is equal to V, what can we say? That W is a subset of V and V is a subset of W. A very fundamental rule of set theory, which we can write that W equal to V, then W is a subset of V and V is a subset of W. So what does this mean actually? The dimension of W will always be less than dimension of V, because a subset of V contains the number of elements less than or equal to the original set or original space or the parent space V. So dimension of W will always be less than or equal to dimension of which we have already discussed and considered in the previous lectures. And this dimension of V will be less than or equal to dimension of W due to this relation. So these two relations give me these two things. And when a number is less than some another number or equal to, and the reverse is also there, then equality is only the possibility. So what can we write? Dimension of V is equal to dimension of W. So in nutshell, we can say that if two sets are equal, then their dimensions are always equal. Next is the converse part. What is the converse part? That we consider that the dimension of two spaces are same. The dimension of V equal to dimension of W, and consider it is say N. Then we need to prove that the two sets are equal. Now we take the help of basis. We have considered the dimension of this V or dimension of W as N. Then I can say that there will be N vectors in either W or V. So let me have, if these are the vectors lying in the basis of W, then B is linearly independent. That we can very well say, because all the vectors lying in basis are always linearly independent, otherwise it is not the basis. So all these vectors are linearly independent, and B, that is the basis, is always the subset of that original set W, and this is also called as linear span of B. So linear span of B is what? W is the set itself. So W is a subspace of V, which we are given that W is a finite dimensional vector space of vector subspace of this V. So I can always write like this. So we consider an element in W which belongs to W. When it is subset of this, it also belongs to V. So this is the complete sentence stating that whenever there is a linear span of any set B is W and it is a subset of V, then we can always have an element in W which also belongs to V. So this helps us saying that since B is the linearly independent set of vectors, we can always say that dimension of V is equal to n, and this enables us to say that this B is the basis of V also. So when a same basis is spanning the set V and W, so a set can span only one. So this is possible only when V is equal to W. So the linear span of B is V and W as well. So I can write W equal to LB equal to V. So this implies that W equal to V. I once again remind that a set of vectors can generate or span only one vector space or vector subspace, and that is why we can say that there cannot be two different subspaces spanned by the same basis, and hence these have to be same. So this completes the proof of this theorem, and this is very important theorem. And we consider the statement of theorem is, if V is a vector space over a field F and is the direct sum of its two subspaces W1 and W2, then dimension of V, the parent vector space, is equal to the sum of dimensions of these two subspaces. Now mind it that it is the direct sum V W1 O plus W2. This is the condition given to us in the theorem. So what does it mean? We have to state a vector space is said to be direct sum V equal to W1 O plus W2 of its two subspaces if they satisfy these two conditions. That is, it is the linear sum of these two subspaces, V is equal to W1 and W2, and the intersection of these two subspaces is a null set. Not null set, it should be zero vector. It is not the null set. The zero vector is the only possible common element between the two W1 and W2. So it should be corrected. It is zero vector, a set consisting of only zero vector. Next, it is well known result that dimension of a linear sum of two vector subspaces is the sum of two vector spaces minus the dimension of their intersection. And we are saying that dimension, the intersection of their two subspaces is the null set, not null set, set containing zero vector, and we know that dimension of zero vector, set containing zero vector is always zero. So I can write it as a zero, and I can use W1 plus W2 equal to V. So we are using both the conditions, V equal to W1 plus W2, and W1 intersection W2 is a set containing only zero element. So when we use these two conditions, we can always write dimension of V equal to dimension of W1 plus dimension of W2. This result has very lengthy proof and it cannot be taken up in the online lectures. You can verify it from any standard book of vector spaces. So these are some very important and small theorems which can be taken up for our consideration.